Winnie the Pooh by Alan Alexander Milne. Introduction. If you have happened to have read another book about Christopher Robin, you may remember that he once had a swan. Or the swan had Christopher Robin, I don't know which, and that he used to call this swan Pooh. That was a long time ago, and when we said goodbye, we took the name Pooh with us, as we didn't think the swan would want it anymore. Well, when Edward Bear said he would like an exciting name all to himself, Christopher Robin said at once, without stopping to think, that he was Winnie the Pooh. And so he was. So as I've now explained the Pooh part, I'll now explain the rest of it. You can't be in London for too long without going to the zoo. There are some people who begin the zoo at the beginning, called Way In, and walk as quickly as they can past every cage until they get to the one labeled Way Out. But the nicest people go straight to the animal they love the most and stay there. So, when Christopher Robin goes to the zoo, he goes right to where the polar bears are, and he whispers something in the third keeper from the left, and doors are unlocked, and we wander through dark passages and up the steep stairs, until we at last come to this special cage, and the cage is opened, and out trots something brown and furry, and with a happy cry of, "Oh, bear!" Christopher Robin rushes into its arms. Now, this bear's name is Winnie, which shows us what a good name for bears it is. But the funny thing is, we can't remember whether Winnie is called after Pooh, or if Pooh is called after Winnie. We did know once, but we've forgotten. And well, I had written this far as when Piglet looked up at me and said in his squeaky voice, "What about me?" "My dear Piglet," I said, "this whole book is about you." "So it is about Pooh," he squeaked. Oh, you see what it is. He's jealous because he thinks Pooh is having a grand introduction all written to himself. Pooh is, of course, the favorite, there's no denying it, but Piglet comes in for a good many things which Pooh misses, as you can't take Pooh to school without everybody knowing it. But Piglet, he is so small that he slips into a pocket, which is very comforting to feel him when you're not quite sure whether twice 7 is 12 or if it's 22. Sometimes he slips out and he has a good look in the ink pot, and in this way he gets more education than Pooh. But Pooh doesn't mind. Some have brains and some haven't, he says, and there it is. And now all the others are saying, "Oh, what about us?" So perhaps the best thing to do is to stop writing introductions and to start writing this book. Chapter 1, in which we are introduced to Winnie the Pooh and some bees, and the stories begin. Here is Edward Bear, coming downstairs now, bump, 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 on the back of his head, right behind Christopher Robin. It is, as far as he knows, the only way of coming downstairs. But sometimes he feels that there really is another way. If only he could stop bumping for a moment to think about it. And then he feels that perhaps there isn't. Anywho, here he is now at the bottom, and ready to be introduced to you. Winnie the Pooh. When I first heard his name, I said, just as you're going to say, "But I thought he was a boy." "So did I," said Christopher Robin. "Then you can't call him Winnie." "I don't." "But you said, 'He's Winnie the Pooh.' Don't you know what 'the' means?" "Ah, yes, now I do," I said quickly. "And I hope you too, because that's all the explanation you're going to get. Sometimes Winnie the Pooh likes a game of sorts when he comes downstairs, and sometimes he likes to sit quietly in front of the fire and listen to a story. This evening—" "What about a story?" said Christopher Robin. "What about a story?" I said. "Could you very sweetly tell Winnie the Pooh one?" "I suppose I could," I said. "What sort of stories does he like?" "Oh, he likes stories about himself, because he's that sort of bear." "Oh, I see. So could you very sweetly?" "I'll try," I said. So I tried. Once upon a time, a very long time ago, probably around last Friday, Winnie the Pooh lived in a forest all by himself under the name of Sanders. "What does under the name mean?" asked Christopher Robin. Well, it means he had the name over the door in gold letters, and he lived under it. Winnie the Pooh wasn't quite sure, said Christopher Robin. No, I am, he said in his voice. Then I will go on, I said. One day, when he was out walking, he came to an open place in the middle of the forest, and in the middle of this place was a large oak tree, and from the top there came a loud buzzing noise. Buzz, 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 buzz. Winnie the Pooh sat down at the foot of the tree, put his head between his paws, and began to think. First of all, he said to himself, that buzzing noise means something. You don't get a buzzing noise like that, just buzzing and buzzing without it meaning something. If there's a buzzing noise, somebody's making a buzzing noise. And the only reason for making a buzzing noise that I know of is because you're a bee. Then he thought another long time and said, and the only reason for being a bee that I know is making honey. And then he got up and said, and the only reason for making honey is so I can eat it. And so he began to climb the tree. He climbed and he climbed and he climbed. And as he climbed, he sang a little song to himself. And it went like this. Isn't it funny how a bear likes honey? Buzz, 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 I wonder why he does. Then he climbed a little farther, and a little farther, and then just a little further. And by that time he had thought of another song. It's a very funny thought that if bears were bees, they'd build their nests at the bottom of the trees. And that being so, if bears were bees, we shouldn't have to climb up all these trees. He was getting rather tired by all this time, so that's why he sang a complaining song. He was nearly there. If he just stood on the top of that branch. Oh, help! Said Pooh as he dropped 10 feet onto the branch below him. If only I hadn't. Boing, he said as he bounced 20 feet onto the next branch. You see, what I meant to do, he explained as he tumbled head over heels and crashed onto another branch 30 feet below. What I meant to do, of course, it was rather. Boing, he admitted as he slithered very quickly through the next 6 branches. It all comes, I suppose, he decided, as he said goodbye to the last branch, spun round 3 times, and flew gracefully into a goose bush. It all comes of liking honey so much. Oh, help! He crawled out of the goose bush, pressed the prickles from his nose, and began to think again. And the first person he thought of was Christopher Robin. Was that me? Said Christopher Robin in an odd voice, hardly daring to believe it. That was you. Christopher Robin said nothing, but his eyes got larger and larger, and his face got pinker and pinker. So Winnie the Pooh went round to his friend Christopher Robin, who lived behind a green door in another part of the forest. Good morning, Christopher Robin, he said. Oh, good morning, Winnie the Pooh, said you. I wonder if you've got such a thing as a balloon about you. A balloon? Yes, I said to myself just coming along. I wonder if Christopher Robin has such a thing as a balloon about him. I just said it to myself, thinking of balloons and wondering. What do you want a balloon for? You said. Winnie the Pooh looked round to see that no one was listening. He put a paw up to his mouth and he said in a deep whisper, For honey. But you don't get honey with balloons. I do, said Pooh. Well, it just so happened that you had been to a party the day before at the house of your friend Piglet, and you had had balloons at that party. You had a big green balloon, one of Rabbit's relatives had a big blue one, and you had left behind being really too young to go to a party at all, and so you had brought the green balloon and the blue balloon home with you. Which one would you like? You asked Pooh. He put his head between his paws and thought very carefully. It's like this, he said. When you go after honey with a balloon, the great thing is to not let the bees know you're coming. Now, if you had a green balloon, they might think you're only part of the tree and not notice you. But if you had a blue balloon, they might think you're only part of the sky and not notice you. Which is more likely? Wouldn't they notice you underneath the balloon? You asked. They might or they might not, said Winnie the Pooh. You can never tell with bees. He thought for a moment and said, I shall try to look like a small black cloud. That'll deceive 'em. So you had better have the blue balloon, you said. And so it was decided. Well, you both went out with the blue balloon, and you took your gun with you, just in case, as you always did. And Winnie the Pooh went to a very muddy place that he knew of, and he rolled and rolled until he was black all over. And then, when the balloon was blown up about as big as can be, you and Pooh were holding onto the string. You let go, and suddenly Pooh Bear floated graciously up into the sky and stayed there, level with the top of the tree and about 20 feet away from it. Hooray! You shouted. Isn't this fine? Shouted Winnie the Pooh back down towards you. What do I look like? Oh, you look like a bear holding onto a balloon, you said. Not, said Pooh anxiously, not like a small black cloud in a blue sky. Well, not very much. Well, perhaps from up here it looks different. As I said, you can never tell with the bees. There was no wind to blow him near to the tree, so there he stayed. He could see the honey, he could smell the honey, but he couldn't quite reach the honey. After a little while, he called back down to you. Christopher Robin, he said in a very loud whisper. Hello. I think the bees suspect something. What sort of thing? I don't know, but something tells me they're suspicious. Perhaps they think you're after the honey. It may be that. You can never tell with the bees. There was another little silence. He called down to you again. Christopher Robin. Yes? Have you an umbrella in your house? I think so. I wish you'd bring it out here and walk up and down with it, and look up at me every now and again, and then say, it looks like rain. I think if you did that, it would help in the deception which we are practicing on these bees. Well, you laughed to yourself. Silly old bear. But you didn't say it out loud because you were fond of him, and so you went home with your umbrella. Oh, there you are, called down Winnie the Pooh, as soon as you got back to the tree. I was beginning to get anxious. I have discovered that these bees are now definitely suspicious. Shall I put my umbrella up, you said? Yes, but wait a moment. We must be practical. The important bee to deceive is the queen bee. Can you see which one's the queen bee from down there? No? A pity. Well, now, if you walk up and down with your umbrella, saying, it looks like rain, I shall do what I can by singing a little cloud song, such as a cloud might sing. Go! So, while you walked up and down and wondered if it would rain, Winnie the Pooh sang this song. How sweet to be a cloud, floating in the blue. Every little cloud always sings out loud. How sweet to be a cloud, floating in the blue. It makes a very proud to be a little cloud. The bees, of course, were still buzzing as suspiciously as ever. Some of them, indeed, left the nests and flew all round the cloud as it began the second verse of the song. One bee sat down on the nose of the cloud for a moment, then got up again. Christopher Robin, called out the cloud. Yes? I have just been thinking, and I have come to a very important decision. These are the wrong sort of bees. Are they? Quite the wrong sort. So I should think they would make the wrong kind of honey, shouldn't you? Would they? Yes, so I think I'm gonna come down. How? Asked you. Winnie the Pooh hadn't really thought about this. If he let go of the string, he would fall, boom, and he didn't like the idea of that. So he thought for a long time and said, Christopher Robin, you need to shoot the balloon with your gun. Have you got your gun? Of course I have, you said. But if I do that, it'll spoil the balloon. Uh, but if you don't, said Pooh, I'll have to let go, and that'll spoil me. When you put it like this, you saw how it done. You aimed very carefully at the balloon, and fired. Pow! Said Pooh. Did I miss? You asked. Well, you didn't exactly miss, said Pooh, but you missed the balloon. I'm so sorry, you said. And you fired again, and this time you hit the balloon, and the air came slowly out, and Winnie the Pooh floated down to the ground. But his arms were so stiff from holding on to the string of the balloon that they stayed up straight for more than a week. Whenever a fly came and settled on his nose, he had to blow it off. And I'm not sure, but that is why he was always called Pooh. Is that the end of the story? Asked Christopher Robin. That's the end of that one. There are others. About Pooh and me, about Piglet and Rabbit and all of you. Don't you remember? I do remember, and then when I try to remember, I forget. Like that day when Pooh and Piglet tried to catch the heffalump? They did catch it, didn't they? No. But Pooh couldn't because he didn't have any brain. Did I catch the heffalump? Well, that comes into the story. Christopher Robin nodded. I do remember. Only Pooh doesn't remember very well. So that's why he likes having it told to him again. Because then it's a real story, and it's not just remembering a story. Well, that's how I feel, I said. Christopher Robin gave a deep sigh, picked his bear up by the leg, and walked off to the door, trailing Pooh behind him. At the door, he turned and said, "Coming to help me with my bath?" "I might," I said. "I didn't hurt him when I shot him, did I?" "Not a bit." He nodded and went out, and in a moment I heard Winnie the Pooh bump, 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 going up the stairs behind him.